The date circled in red is July 1st, 2026. That morning, Virginia House Bill 2673 takes effect. When the clock rolls past midnight on that Wednesday, sheriff's departments across the Commonwealth lose the authority to honor most ICE detainer requests without a judicial warrant. Deputies can no longer hold undocumented arrestees past their release time. The 287G task force agreements Greene County signed in 2019 will be gutted. 7 days. That is the window. Sheriff Stephen Smith stands at the head of the folding table in a black polo, radio clipped to his chest, coffee cooling in a paper cup. Beside him is deportation officer Marcus Elwood, a 15-year ERO veteran out of the Washington field office, who drove down from Fairfax the night before. Elwood is the operational lead. Smith is the local face. Between them sits a binder 3 inches thick, target packages, driver's license photos, last known addresses, employer records, vehicle plates. 49 names, 49 doors. The operation has a code name, Blue Ridge Reckoning. Planning started in April. According to the internal ICE memorandum later obtained by the Charlottesville Daily Progress, the operational timeline was pushed up by 19 days after the Virginia General Assembly passed HB 2673 in early June. 19 days. That detail will matter later. At 4:52 a.m., the convoy rolls out of the sheriff's lot in 3 staggered elements. Element 1 heads north on US 33 toward Ruckersville. 6 vehicles, 12 agents, 8 warrants. Element 2 takes Route 230 east toward Standardsville proper. 4 vehicles, 9 agents, 11 warrants. Element 3, the largest, moves south into the trailer parks along Pretty Creek Road. 9 vehicles, 19 agents, 30 warrants. The remaining 11 arrests are what ERO calls collateral, people encountered at target locations who aren't on the list, but whose status is questionable. In every large-scale operation, the collateral number is where the politics live. Element 2 hits its first door at 5:14 a.m., a double-wide on Amicus Road. The target is a 34-year-old Honduran national named Wilmer Amaya Portillo, working construction out of a crew in Charlottesville, ordered removed in absentia in 2019. Agents knock, announce, wait the required 10 seconds. Amaya Portillo opens the door in a t-shirt and jeans, already dressed for a job site he will never reach. He does not resist.
He asks, in Spanish, if his wife can call his mother. The lead agent nods. 6 minutes later, he is in the back of a Chevy Tahoe, hands zip-tied in front, heading toward the temporary staging area at the Greene County Community Center. That staging area is the first crack in the plan. The community center is a low brick building on Standardsville Road, with a gymnasium, 3 classrooms, and a single-stool bathroom.
ICE rented it for the day under a facilities use agreement signed 48 hours earlier by County Administrator Brenda Garton. The agreement lists the purpose as law enforcement training. It does not mention detention. By 6:30 a.m., 23 detainees are seated on folding chairs in 3 rows inside the gym, guarded by 4 agents. The bathroom line is already 20 minutes long. Nobody has been offered food. A local pastor named Reverend Michael Chook arrives at 6:47 with a case of bottled water and is turned away at the door. Chook drives back to his church and starts making calls. The calls go out in a specific order. First to the Legal Aid Justice Center, then to the ACLU of Virginia, then to a state delegate named Sam Rasool, whose office in Richmond doesn't open until 9, but whose chief of staff answers her cell phone on the 3rd ring. By 7:20 a.m., a group text has formed with 14 participants, attorneys, clergy, 2 journalists, a paralegal, and a bilingual social worker from a Charlottesville nonprofit called Sin Barreras. Someone in that thread uses the phrase, "This is the one," and the rest of the morning is spent trying to figure out exactly what that means. By 8 a.m., the Legal Aid Justice Center in Charlottesville has activated its rapid response network. Attorney Simon Sandoval-Moschenberg, who has litigated against ICE detainer practices for over a decade, is on the phone with a federal magistrate. His argument is procedural. The community center is not a designated detention facility under 8 CFR 235.3. Detainees are being held without access to counsel, and at least 2 people inside, according to family members now gathering in the parking lot, are U.S. citizens picked up as collateral because they could not produce identification at 5 a.m. in their own homes. He was 19 years old. That is the age of Kevin Ramirez, born in Culpeper, Virginia, a graduate of William Monroe High School, whose only offense that morning was answering the door in boxer shorts when agents came looking for his uncle. Ramirez was zip-tied, walked to a Tahoe, and driven to the community center before anyone checked his wallet. His mother arrived at the gym at 7:15 with his birth certificate and his Social Security card. She was told to wait outside. Element 3, meanwhile, is finding trouble of a different kind. The Preddy Creek Road trailer parks are dense, poorly mapped, and full of duplicate addresses.
2 target doors turn out to be the wrong units. The families inside had moved in 6 weeks earlier and had no connection to the warrants. At Lot 47, agents encounter a locked door and a barking pit bull. They breach with a hand ram at 5:38 a.m. The house is empty. The target, a Guatemalan national named Edwin Chavez Lopez, had moved to North Carolina in February. The intel was 5 months old. Officer Elwood is on the radio now, rerouting units, cross-checking addresses against the target packages, trying to keep the operation on schedule. The schedule matters because the detainees at the community center need to be processed and transported to the Farmville Detention Center, a 745-bed ICE facility 90 miles southeast, before the end of the operational day. Farmville has agreed to accept up to 60 transfers. The buses are staged in Ruckersville. The drivers are on the clock. By 10 a.m., word of the operation has spread across the county. Cell phone videos are appearing on Facebook. A crowd of about 40 people has gathered outside the community center, some holding hand-lettered signs, some just watching, some crying. A woman named Maria Delgado is on the phone with her husband, who is somewhere inside the gym. She has not been allowed to see him. She's been told he is fine. She's been told nothing else. The Facebook videos do something the planners did not anticipate. One of them, 37 seconds, shot from a Ford F-150 across the street from the community center, shows a handcuffed man being walked from a Tahoe into the gym while a small child, maybe 4 years old, stands in the parking lot screaming for him in Spanish. The child is not his. The child belongs to a bystander who had come to look for her cousin. But the video does not explain that, and by 11 a.m., it has been shared 6,000 times. By noon, 22,000. By the end of the day, 140,000. The Washington Post picks it up at 3:14 p.m. The Associated Press files a wire story at 4:02 p.m. Somewhere in an office in Richmond, a legislative aide prints out the transcript of the June debate on HB 2673 and highlights 3 passages in yellow. Now, the obvious question is why Greene County, a rural jurisdiction of just under 20,000 people, was chosen for an operation of this scale. The ICE planning documents give 3 reasons. First, Greene had one of the most active 287G agreements in the Commonwealth, giving deputies immigration enforcement authority that other counties lacked. Second, the sheriff's office had submitted 312 detainer requests to ERO in the previous 18 months, a per capita rate higher than Fairfax or Prince William. Third,
and most importantly, Green sat inside the Washington field office's jurisdiction, but was rural enough to avoid the media saturation of a Northern Virginia operation. The memo calls it a favorable operational environment.
That phrase was written 6 days before HB 2673 was signed into law. At 11:14 a.m., the first legal challenge lands in federal court. Sandoval Moschenberg files an emergency motion in the Western District of Virginia asking Judge Norman Moon to order the release of any U.S. citizens being held at the community center and to require ICE to provide immediate access to counsel for all detainees. The motion names Kevin Ramirez specifically. It attaches his birth certificate as an exhibit. Judge Moon does not rule immediately. He sets a hearing for 2 p.m. Inside the gym, agents have begun processing detainees in earnest. Fingerprints on portable scanners, photographs against a blue tarp hung on the cinder block wall, biographical intake on ruggedized tablets. Kevin Ramirez is pulled aside at 11:40 a.m. after his mother's documents are finally examined by a supervisor. He is released without apology, without paperwork, without a ride home. He walks the 2 miles back to his house in bare feet because no one returned his shoes. A U.S. citizen held for 6.5 hours in a rented gymnasium, released with no shoes. The second collateral citizen is a 58-year-old naturalized American named Rosa Meneses Wright, originally from El Salvador, who became a citizen in 2011. She was picked up at a house where her adult son, who is undocumented, was the actual target. She had a valid Virginia driver's license in her purse. The purse was on the kitchen counter. Agents did not check it. She spent the morning in the gym repeating the word citizen in English and being told to sit down. At the 2 p.m. hearing, Judge Moon issues a narrow order. ICE must immediately verify the citizenship status of every person in custody, must provide phone access to any detainee who requests it, and must produce a list of all detainees to counsel within 2 hours. He declines to order the release of the community center. He declines to halt the operation, but the order is enough to slow everything down. The buses to Farmville do not leave until 6:47 p.m., 3 hours behind schedule. Between the hearing and the departure, something else happens that does not appear in any official record, but shows up in 3 separate detainee affidavits filed months later. At approximately 4 p.m., a woman named Yesenia, no last name given in the affidavits, only the first, begins having contractions in her folding chair. She is 31 weeks pregnant. She tells the nearest agent in broken English. The agent radios for a supervisor. The supervisor arrives 11 minutes later, examines her from 6 feet away, and instructs another agent to move her to a classroom where she can lie down on a stack of exercise mats. No ambulance is called. No medical personnel arrive. Her contractions stop on their own around 5:30 p.m. She is placed on a bus to Farmville at 6:47 with everyone else. She delivered her son, prematurely, in the Farmville Medical Unit on July 6th. He weighed 4 pounds, 2 ounces. He is a U.S. citizen by birth. His mother was deported to Guatemala on August 22nd. The final arrest of the day happens at 4:22 p.m. on Bacon Hollow Road, a winding 2-lane that climbs into the Blue Ridge. The target is a 41-year-old Mexican national named José Luis Herrera Mendoza, a landscaper with a 2016 DUI and an outstanding removal order. Agents find him at his employer's equipment shed, loading a mower into a trailer. He does not run. He asks if he can call his daughter, who is 14 and waiting for him at home. The agents say yes. He calls. He tells her in Spanish that he loves her and that everything will be okay. Then he hands the phone back and puts his hands behind his back. 49 arrests, 11 collateral encounters, 2 U.S. citizens detained in error,
1 breach on an empty trailer. 3 hours behind schedule. 0 use of force incidents. 0 injuries. By ICE's own metrics, Blue Ridge Reckoning is a success. By every other metric, it is something else. The operation ended on June 24, 2026. 7 days later, at 12:01 a.m. on July 1st, HB 2673 took effect across Virginia. Every sheriff's department in the Commonwealth received a memo from the Attorney General clarifying that ICE detainer requests without a judicial warrant were no longer to be honored. The Greene County 287G agreement, which had authorized deputies to serve as force multipliers for federal immigration enforcement since 2019, became legally inert. Sheriff Smith held a press conference on July 2nd. He stood in front of the same folding table where the briefing had happened 8 days earlier, in the same black polo, and read a prepared statement. He said the operation was routine. He said the timing was coincidental. He said the safety of Greene County residents was his only priority. He took no questions. The internal ICE memo that would later contradict him, the one describing a 19-day acceleration timed to the legislative deadline, was released through a Freedom of Information Act request filed by the Charlottesville Daily Progress on August 14th. It became public on November 3rd. By then, 41 of the 49 detainees had been deported. 6 were still in immigration proceedings at Farmville. 2 had been granted bond and released to family in Northern Virginia. The memo runs 11 pages. 9 of them are operational logistics, vehicle assignments, radio frequencies, medical contingencies, transport routes. The 10th page is a risk assessment. It lists 3 primary risks: media exposure, civil litigation, and, in the specific language of the document, statutory obsolescence of local cooperation authorities effective July 1st, 2026. That last risk is followed by a single-sentence recommendation. Advance operational timeline to permit execution under existing legal framework. Signed by an assistant field office director whose name was redacted in the FOIA release, but whose initials, according to a source cited by the Daily Progress, match those of a career ERO official who has since been promoted to a policy role in Washington. Kevin Ramirez filed a civil rights lawsuit against Greene County and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security on September 9th, seeking damages under Bivens and 42 U.S.C. Section 1983 for unlawful detention. The case is pending in the Western District of Virginia. Rosa Meneses Wright joined the suit as a co-plaintiff on October 21st. Their lead attorney is Simon Sandoval Moschenberg, the same lawyer who spent June 24th on the phone with a federal magistrate trying to get inside the gym. Say this once: the operation was not illegal. The timing was not accidental. And the system worked exactly as it was designed to work, which is precisely what the new law was written to change. The community center on Standardsville Road returned to hosting yoga classes on July 8th. The blue tarp came down. The folding chairs were stacked. The gym floor was mopped twice, once by county maintenance, once by a volunteer crew from Reverend Chook's church. Walk in there today, and you would not know that 23 people spent a summer morning inside it, being processed for removal from a country most of them had lived in for over a decade. Jose Luis Herrera Mendoza was deported to Mexico on August 3rd. His daughter, now 15, lives with her aunt in Ruckersville. She still has the last voicemail he left her. She has not deleted it. She's not listened to it either. Wilmer Amaya Portillo was deported to Honduras on July 19th. His wife remained in Virginia. She is pregnant with their second child, due in February 2027. The buses that ran from Standardsville to Farmville on the night of June 24th have made the same trip 47 times since. each time carrying fewer people, because since July 1st, the sheriffs who used to fill them are no longer allowed to. 4:30 in the morning, Greene County, Virginia. Somewhere in a file cabinet in the sheriff's office on Kelt Road, the calendar from June still hangs on a hook. The red circle around July 1st has faded slightly in the summer light, but it is still there. 7 days. That was the window, and they used every hour of it.